Hello everyone, welcome back to Ed Talks Film. My name is Ed, we're here to talk film. And today we're here to talk about a film that I was very excited for. Maybe my most anticipated movie of the year outside of The Batman, which I really liked. And that is The Northman. The Northman is Robert Eggers' third feature film, this time not with A24 but with Focus Features. And it follows basically the saga of this Viking prince named Amleth who loses his father at the hands of his uncle. And any of you guys who are sort of aware of how stories like this go, if you've ever seen Hamlet, you understand that now the young wayward Viking prince who's been displaced from his kingdom has to go on a path of revenge to kill his uncle. Many of you may not know, but the Norse saga of Amleth, I think, is actually the inspiration for Hamlet by William Shakespeare. So yeah, we get an epic Viking revenge tale from Robert Eggers. This is one of many movies that was sort of up in the, who knows if that's going to happen, because it seems like there's been quite a few Robert Eggers projects flying around, but The Northman actually got made. And let's just say I think this might be my favorite movie of 2022. Right up front, I'm not going to bury the lead on that one. I think this very much might be my favorite movie of the year. Already, we're only about a third of the way through the year at the recording of this, and I'm already almost ready to just say that no other movie is going to top this. Now, I'm a big fan of Robert Eggers. Being a New England native myself, I'm kind of biased in a sense as well, because he's from New Hampshire and I am from Massachusetts, live literally on the border of New Hampshire. Getting to see, The Witch, which I thought was a brilliant movie that really captured the spirit of sort of the creepy history of New England. The Lighthouse, which I thought was an absolutely brilliant, dark, Lovecraftian, confined, horror, weird movie with amazing performances. I really dug that movie. Actually, the first Robert Eggers movie that I got to see in theaters, because I didn't get to see The Witch in the theaters, but I did get to see The Lighthouse, so I'm very happy about that. We all know him for weird aspect ratios and very dense dialogue that is more than historically accurate, and very keen attention to detail of the period, something where he, as a brand new filmmaker, puts seasoned filmmakers to shame who make period pieces. It's honestly quite amazing. And now he's back with this Viking epic revenge tale that's inspired by the sagas. Man, I mean, where do you even start? Let's start with the performances. Alexander Skarsgård is a revelation in this film. This actually might be my favorite performance by him, I think, in his entire career from what I've seen of him. I've liked Alexander Skarsgård in quite a few things. I liked him in a movie that probably nobody likes, War on Everyone. I liked him in Big Little Lies. He's somebody that I've seen on and off in films, but I've not necessarily gone and sought out Alexander Skarsgård pieces. But him as a Viking, I remember when I saw that trailer going, yeah, that makes sense. He's huge and he's Norse. So why wouldn't this work? And it does work amazingly. For starters, he's built like a freaking semi-truck, dude. It's insane to see him actually that jacked in a movie. And I think one of the very interesting things about his performance is not just his ability to just say these lines with an intensity, right? Because anyway, saying a line with an intensity is only part of the performance, but it's the physical part of the performance as well, which sort of helps sell a lot of your character, right? What are you doing that's nonverbal? And one thing that I think he really nailed was this sort of posture that he takes, which I noticed after I was actually listening to Robert Eggers talk about this film on a podcast. I believe it might have been in Mark Maron's What the F podcast. And he really does have this hunched over feel where he does feel like he has he's Atlas carrying the world on his shoulders. And I love that so much. I love just the way he looks. the way he looks at people too, right? There's a couple sequences in the film where he's looking directly into the camera, and you're just like horrified by what thoughts may be perverting the mind of this really broken warrior. And it's really sick. And you really feel for him too. And even the character that plays young Amleth, who does really well too with his section towards in the beginning of the movie, basically, where we get all of Amleth's backstory, you really, really like dig both of their performances. I really thought that they both did very well, especially Skarsgård, obviously, because he's in the majority of the movie. And you really do feel the emotional resonance of his performance. At one point in the movie, he gives a speech on a boat to Anya Taylor-Joy's character, which we'll get to in a second, that absolutely freaking blew my mind. Just with the between the his performance and the music and the visual, it was just like, wow, this is really incredible, honestly. As far as Anya Taylor-Joy is concerned, who, you know, we all know her from Robert Eggers' first very iconic film, The Witch. It's weird to think that The Lighthouse actually might be more iconic than The Witch, but here we are. You know, she's absolutely brilliant as this sort of Slavic woman who is taken up as a slave, who Amleth befriends, and then they sort of like kind of get into cahoots together. And it's so fascinating actually to watch like how she uses her womanhood in the film to her advantage, right? And it's interesting. This does obviously fit in with sort of the gender politics themes that all of Eggers' movies seem to now have. And you wonder if that's, you know, he's said he's tried to portray history as objectively as possible, right? To just show you it. And I think he does that pretty well for the most part. I think when it comes to gender politics, that he really does allow that to slip in quite a bit. But that also might be our hypersensitivity to gender politics, gender roles, gender power dynamics in our culture nowadays that sort of forces us to think about it a lot more and focus on it a lot more. So I don't know how much of that I can attribute to him or attribute to the movie. But it's definitely something that you notice, and it's something that is obviously done a lot when historical movies where women are at a societal disadvantage to men, right? Where they have to use different skills in order to gain themselves power due to the fact that they're not respected as much. So that's a very fascinating thing that her character sort of explores, but something I really, really found fascinating with her, again, was her performance. Anya Taylor-Joy is shaping up to probably going to be one of the greatest movie stars. I don't even want to say the word movie star because that implies like some sort of like inherent like popularity quality that like sort of exceeds their ability. As an actress, I think she will go down as one of the most accomplished actresses in cinema if her career keeps going the way it does, because she is quite a stunning performer. And there's actually a scene in the movie that I really, really loved with her that you actually see a little bit of in the trailer. There's that sequence in the trailer where she sort of like goes up like this. It was in like the early trailer, and there's like the boat, the sail behind her. She gives this sort of like speech in sort of whatever the tongue is of the time that her character is speaking. I'm not exactly like super familiar. And it's absolute, and you're just there, dude. You're just there. Like, they really do a great job, both of these performers, at bringing you just in, right? Just grabbing you and not letting you go with their performances. Anya Taylor-Joy's the intensity of her character in that moment and at other times in the movie is absolutely insane. And you really just can't get enough of it. And I absolutely, absolutely adore it. I absolutely adore all the performances in the movie. I mean, you know, Anya Taylor-Joy and Alexander Skarsgård are only like the two leads of the film. But, you know, even going down the line, right? Nicole Kidman. Amazing to see her in just another like kind of crazy, weird role, just on the like just doing something very unique with her character. She plays Amleth's mom. She actually has a very, very revelatory sort of revelation in the film towards the end that was absolutely fascinating to see, especially in terms of how it affected the journey of our hero Amleth. And I actually found that very fascinating, like that Eggers was able to play with that, and not only be able to play with that, it also does go back into what I was talking about the gender politics of this film and Eggers films in general. But how that affects like the hero's journey is so fascinating, and how she's able to deliver that is absolutely skillfully done. It doesn't feel she doesn't make it. There's a chance that it could be hammy and weird, but she as a performer is just so strong that when it does come up, you're just like, wow, that's wow, and you kind of feel for what she's sort of bringing up in that moment. Claes Bang does an amazing job as the betrayer uncle, right? Who betrays Amleth's father, played by Ethan Hawke. Who also does a very, very amazing job. Has a kind of a hard job towards the beginning of the movie because he has to play like with some physical weirdness between him and Willem Dafoe, who also does very good with his small role in the film. This movie is just filled with great performances all around that don't take you out of the film, and I absolutely love that. Going to the visual side of it, Jaron Blaschke is back as the cinematographer collaborator with Robert Eggers. He obviously collaborated with him on The Witch. He collaborated with him on The Lighthouse, two films that look absolutely stunning and have very, very unique cinematography. The Lighthouse having earned Jaron Blaschke a nomination for Best Cinematography at the Oscars. With The Lighthouse, I think they really with The Northman, I think they absolutely knock it out of the park in terms of the visual language of this film. I mean, very famously, Alfonso Cuarón came out and said that every frame of this movie was like dripping with like thematic resonance and emotional weight or something like that. I think he kind of nails it with that description. I think there's no better way to actually say that. The film cinematography is quite incredible. Through and through, whether it's shots of like this looming volcano in Iceland in the background, which are absolutely horrifying and awe-inspiring at the same time. There's a lot of long takes in the film, which I think are very fascinating. A lot of these sort of like tracking shots that go through various parts of an environment and follow singular stories within within the main story that's already happening, that I think is very, very skillfully done, and it's something that I actually was not aware that I was going to enjoy. Now, I saw this movie twice, and the first time I saw the movie, I actually was kind of jarred by the cinematography because we are used, with just these two movies, Robert Eggers has really associated himself with strange aspect ratios, more boxy aspect ratios and stuff like that. So it was interesting seeing a movie of his done in more widescreen format, which was kind of strange in a way to just like be present for, but him and Jaron Blaschke really make the best of it. And I think as time went on, especially on my second watch, I really was like, yeah, this is kind of the best way to show this. It would have been cool in a boxy aspect ratio, like maybe a taller frame, not necessarily a skinnier frame, but a taller frame, like what they had done for I believe for The Lighthouse it was a taller frame, but I think for The Witch, see, that frame was a taller frame, not a skinnier frame. Just seeing that was very fascinating to see how they were going to tackle that, and all these big camera movements, which we're also not very used to with Robert Eggers movies. There's a little bit of them in The White House, but there's big sweeping crane shots and stuff like that in this film, and I think he absolutely nails it. I think the two of them together, Jaron Blaschke and Robert Eggers, they're able to create these frames that are so stunning that they sort of that for me they are stuck in my mind. They're etched into my brain. I can't forget some of them. They're just so like. There's this amazing shot of Skarsgård standing in front of this like burning home. The fortress type thing. There's these animals that sort of play into the lore of the Norse mythology, and the film, that's sort of the shots of them that come in, the dream sequences. There's this amazing visual motif with this sort of tree with vines that it interconnects the souls and life of a lot of these characters, and that's also very beautiful and fascinating. He's able to, when there's sequences where characters are just out of their mind, hopped up on drugs, and the cinematography really plays into the idea that this is a state outside of what would be a normal human state, a normal sane state, a normal state of sobriety. You are in a different plane of existence almost, and the cinematography is really, really good at helping convey that, as well as the music. You can also tell that Robert Eggers took a lot of inspiration from, like, say, Eastern European cinema specifically. The films of directors like Tarkovsky. If you go to more Northern European, you can definitely see some Bergman in there. If you've ever heard the A24 podcast between Eggers and Ari Aster, you know that he is a big fan of Bergman. So you actually, and I believe they do even mention Tarkovsky at one point in it. But you can see that coming through, and I think that's only right, considering where the film takes place, right, in that sort of northern Eastern European region, and then in Iceland. You do get sort of these frames. The visual language of the film is infused with the auteurs of that movement that sort of helped define Eastern European cinema for a lot of people. There's allusions in the film to movies like Andrei Rublev and To Come and See, which I think are really, really great. And there's one sequence in particular that actually is so come and see that upon first watching it, I was like, he literally, like, this is ripped straight from Come and See, and even within a similar geographical location as Come and See. So it's so fascinating actually just to see what he does, how he's able to take inspiration from these masterpieces that we all know, and infuse them into this brutal, bloody Viking saga film that ultimately might be like the Viking saga film to end all Viking saga films, honestly. There's also these great landscape shots. There's shots of them traveling that are just so beautiful. There's a whole a montage where they're transporting slaves across several environments, and it looks absolutely incredible. And it was borderline like nature documentary, like Planet Earth level beautiful at times. And I was just like, I'm literally just so blown away right now. This is freaking insane. And then there's obviously Robert Eggers and Sean wrote this film, and I love what they were able to do, I think, for the Viking saga, because they sort of take all the elements of what we've seen in movies before, right? They're and able to, with Eggers' attention to historical accuracy and his ability to really get into the mindset of the time period, of the people in the time period, and how they saw the world, and not looking at history from like an outsider's point of view lens. He's really able to create a sort of sense around this movie that feels far more authentic than basically any other medieval film, any other middle-aged film, any other film about, any time past 1,000 years ago. It's absolutely incredible just seeing a Viking. It's almost like seeing a Viking movie for the first time. You almost feel like you have been cheated out of actual real quality content within the realm of telling the story about telling legendary stories about the Vikings, because of how absolutely detail based, how authentic this movie feels, how beautiful it is, and how objective it is, honestly, on the matter at hand. Like I said, Eggers kind of wants to show you things. He talked about he wants to show you things for what they are, and he really does lean into that sort of thing. And the style of the film, the feeling of the score, what happens in the film, the narrative twists and turns of the film, they really feel like they are something out of a saga that, like, you would have picked up maybe when you were in middle school or something, and you might have read, like, Beowulf or something like that, and you're reading and you're just like, oh my god, this is absolutely insane. And the movie's style and the movie's writing really mirror that and bring that feeling to life. There was always something about, when my teachers would describe to me like these stories, these medieval, ancient, epic stories, right? And then I would try and read it, and I couldn't really read the English in it too well, and I was like, oh, no. Or then you'd see a movie about it, and you're like, oh, that was pretty cool, or whatever, but it didn't necessarily like hit you. I feel like the Northman really does an amazing job at really bringing all of that, right? At really bringing everything that actually made those stories incredible, made those stories thrilling and great, and transporting them onto screen on a canvas that's absolutely beautiful, with a score that's blood pumping, really heightens the emotion at times, and with performances that really sell you on not only the time period, but the motivations and the feelings and the emotions of these characters. He really, really does go all the way with this film, and that's something that, I feel like other filmmakers, when they see this movie and they want to make historical films, especially historical films about those time periods, right? Take in the spirituality, take in the weirdness of their culture. Really don't water it down. That's something that Hollywood likes to do a lot, because I think like, this is, that might be a little too weird for audiences, and maybe they're right to an extent. I mean, the Northman isn't really making that much money right now. I hope that the movie has longer legs, whether it's DVD sales and streaming and stuff like that, but that's where a lot of those films, a lot of the great films that we know for the medieval time period really fall short of the Northman. And I'm a big fan of history, and I love, medieval tales and learning about stuff like that. And the Northman honestly blew me away so much that I really don't know if I want to watch another medieval movie, another Viking thing. Like, I probably will watch more Viking things just because I'm just on a Viking kick now, right? I want to learn so much more about them. But there's always going to be a quality that's just so missing, that's just absent, because of Robert Eggers really going all out on this movie and sort of, like I said, putting a lot of other filmmakers to shame about what they should be probably focusing on when it comes to these films. There is the ability to make this an entertaining film, and this movie's very entertaining. It's very entertaining. More so than, say, a movie like The Green Knight, which I think also follows in the footsteps. Or, well, it doesn't follow in the footsteps, but it was the preceding footsteps to a film like the Northman, right? With leaning into the authenticity, right? And not being afraid to be weird, and really taking in a lot of the actual beliefs, and not trying to look at it from like a distant point of view, like actually trying to, capture what it was to be in that time and what they believed. Right? The Northman does that, and I think if a lot of other filmmakers or studios wouldn't be scared to do that, we may not have the issue now where medieval movies kind of come out and people don't really dig them, and then when a medieval movie like The Northman does come out, or I guess you would call this the Middle Ages probably, right? And it comes out and you go, oh my gosh, this is awesome, but nobody sees it because I think they're kind of burnt on movies like surrounding this sort of time period anyway. And in my mind, I mean, whenever I see a medieval movie coming out, I get excited when I feel like it's going to be authentic. Which is one of the reasons why I was very excited when The Green Knight came out. It was a movie that I thought was really awesome. It's a movie I really want to see again at some point soon. But The Northman, I feel like, really knocked it out the park. It really did everything that I wanted that movie to do, especially after all the worry that Robert Eggers kind of caused a lot of us when talking about the studio interference and the horrible test screenings that happened for the film. It's kind of like, this might not be that great, not because of Eggers, but because the studio may have asked him to change too much and the movie might not be that good. But no, he really, really does nail bringing the Viking saga to the screen in a way that's not only never been done before, but also retreading ground that we've obviously seen before, and bringing an authenticity and an intensity and a beauty and a respect to it that I think didn't exist before. So yeah, The Northman. If you've seen it, please let me know what you guys thought. I love this movie. Like I said, I think it's going to be my favorite movie of 2022 as of right now, unless something amazing comes out and really blows me away. But yeah, if you guys want to follow me, keep up with me, my letterboxd is in the description of this video. My Instagram is also in the description of this video. I'll put my Twitch down there where I stream video games. If you guys want to come in and talk to me about movies, I really, really appreciate that too. I always love talking about movies. Also, thank you. I'm going to just say thank you to everybody for showing support on my Last Temptation of Christ versus the Passion of the Christ video essay. It means a lot that you guys sort of showed up for that. I worked very hard on it, and then YouTube took it down, and I had to re-upload it and fix some things. So just thank you so much for showing up and showing some love on that video, because I worked hard on it, and it means a lot, and it was something that was very, very important to me. So yeah, thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys next time. Adios.